The rain fell softly that night, as if the sky itself mourned what they were about to lose. Amira stood trembling beneath the city lights, her lips inches from his. The man who had broken every rule to love her. Daehyun's hand cupped her face, his voice barely a whisper. If I kiss you now, I may never let you go. She smiled through her tears. Then don't. Their lips met, slow, desperate, unforgettable. And in that one kiss, they said everything words could never hold. The air in Seoul bit with cold precision, neat streets, clean lines, a skyline that looked like it had been cut with a ruler. Amira Obianuju stepped out of Incheon Airport with her signature red box braids tucked under a wool cap and a passport full of possibilities. She wasn't the type to be intimidated. Not by the blinking billboards, not by the silent stares of men in suits, and certainly not by the icy email from Baek Joon-ho's office. You will design a menu worthy of the Hanul name. No mistakes. No delays. It was a challenge, and she had never met one she didn't want to conquer. Her first impression of Seoul was rhythm, trains moving with purpose, people talking fast, smells of sesame oil and roasted chestnuts filling the air. But her world narrowed when she saw the Hanul Tower for the first time, sleek, tall, reflective. It didn't belong to the city, it owned it. Inside, the walls were white marble, the air perfumed faintly with money. And at the end of a silent corridor stood Daehyun. Tall. Tailored. Untouchable. He didn't smile when he extended his hand. You're late. Amira arched a brow. Your city's traffic tried to kill me. I survived. That's punctuality in Lagos time. The corners of his mouth didn't even twitch. Lagos time doesn't exist here. Then maybe it should, she muttered, just loud enough for him to hear. The meeting began as a clash and ended as an unspoken duel. She was meant to cook for him. He was meant to judge her. But when she placed a plate of spicy jollof with a Korean twist in front of him, his composure flickered, just a little. He took one bite. Silence. Then, quietly, it burns. Amira smiled. Good. That's the point. From that day, the kitchen became a war zone dressed in stainless steel. Daehyun was exacting, every cut, every spice measured to the gram. Amira believed in instinct, in the language of taste, in chaos that somehow made sense. He'd correct her plating. She'd correct his attitude. Every day, they argued. Every night, he replayed her words in his head like an echo he couldn't mute. She'd storm out muttering, "You want perfection, not flavor." He'd whisper to himself, "She has no discipline." But there were moments, brief, dangerous, when the air between them grew thick. When her laughter filled the kitchen, something in him softened. When he adjusted her grip on a knife, her breath caught. Still, neither of them would admit it. That night, as snow began to fall outside the Hanul building, Amira found him alone in the empty dining room, sleeves rolled, tie undone, eyes on the city below. You don't sleep, she asked softly. Sleep wastes time. She smiled faintly. No wonder you look like you haven't smiled since birth. He turned his gaze on her, sharp, assessing. You talk too much. And you don't talk enough. The silence that followed wasn't comfortable. It was charged. And in that silence, something shifted. Amira had learned early that cooking was never just about food, it was about people, about truth. So when she discovered a locked ledger in the pantry marked Hanul Imports, curiosity won. Inside were shipment receipts, ingredients imported from Africa, labeled under false companies. Something didn't add up. Later that night, she confronted Daehyun. Why is your company importing cocoa and labeling it industrial material? His eyes darkened. That's none of your business. It is when my country's farmers are getting underpaid while your company profits. The tension cracked between them like lightning. Watch your tone, he said, stepping closer. Or what? She challenged, standing her ground. You'll fire me for asking questions? He froze. Nobody talked to him like that. Nobody dared. But beneath his anger was something else, a flicker of shame, or maybe recognition. You should go home, Miss Obianuju, he said finally. Korea is not a place for people who stir too much. Amira looked him straight in the eye. Neither is Lagos. But I stirred anyway. Days passed, and their arguments became rhythm. Their silences, music. He started coming to the kitchen more often. Watching her. Asking quiet questions. And one evening, when she burned her hand pulling a pan from the oven, he moved faster than logic, grabbing her wrist, running cool water over her skin. Their eyes met. The world narrowed. She felt his thumb brush her pulse, lingering. He felt his heart, usually still, start to stumble. Why do you care? She whispered. He let her wrist go. I don't. But they both knew that was a lie. The Hanul restaurant launched its trial night. Critics, reporters, socialites. Amira's menu was a fusion of continents, a love letter in spice and courage. Everything was perfect until a journalist asked her, what inspired this? She looked at Daehyun across the room and said, pain. And people who hide behind money. The room froze. Daehyun's jaw tightened. Later, in the hallway, he cornered her. You humiliated me. No, she said quietly. I reminded you that money doesn't hide guilt. He stepped closer until she could feel the warmth of him, smell the faint cologne and steel. You don't know me. Then show me who you are, she dared. For a moment, his restraint slipped, just enough that she saw the fracture behind his control. And then he walked away. That night, Amira returned to her apartment to find the door slightly open. Inside, her things were untouched, except for one envelope on the counter. Inside was a single photo. Her, standing in the Hanul kitchen. Taken from a hidden camera. And written beneath it in neat Hangul. Go back to Nigeria before you end up like the last one. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You've made powerful enemies. She turned toward the window, and saw a shadow move in the alley below. Her heart pounded. The city's lights blinked like warnings. And somewhere in the darkness, Daehyun was watching the same alley, his face unreadable. The war between them had just begun. The nights in Daehyun's penthouse kitchen grew longer. Amira worked in silence, her movements precise, her expression unreadable. Yet she could feel it, his gaze lingering just a second too long, his footsteps echoing closer than they used to. He began showing up unannounced. At first, to inspect. Then, to taste. But lately, just to stand near her. Still, there was something dark in his stillness, a tension that didn't belong to admiration. He watched her like someone memorizing a secret they shouldn't know. One evening, as Amira plated a dish for his board meeting, she noticed an unfamiliar figure reflected in the steel door, a man in a black suit, standing just behind Daehyun. He whispered something in Korean before leaving as silently as he came. Later that night, she heard Daehyun on the phone, his tone sharp, cold, lethal. When he noticed her in the hallway, he simply said, "You didn't hear anything." And walked away. The city lights shimmered against the windows, painting him in gold and blue, a beautiful contradiction she couldn't stop looking at. Days passed, and Daehyun's mood grew unpredictable. Some nights, he was almost gentle, asking about her family in Nigeria, about her dreams of opening her own restaurant. Other nights, he barely spoke at all. One evening, Amira found a sealed envelope left on the kitchen counter. Her name was written on it, in his handwriting. Inside, a single card. Do not come to the restaurant tomorrow. She ignored it. When she arrived the next day, she was met by chaos. Police cars outside, whispers of a fire in the storage room. A rival chef had been arrested for smuggling, using imported spices that weren't meant for food. Daehyun stood in the smoke-filled hallway, his eyes burning with fury. He walked toward her, close enough that she could feel the heat still clinging to his clothes. You shouldn't have come, he said quietly, his voice low, almost trembling. Amira's eyes locked on his, not afraid, but curious. Something deeper was hiding in his silence. Something that made her heart ache, even when she wanted to hate him. For the first time, Daehyun invited Amira to dine with him. The table was long and elegant, candles flickering between them. He didn't eat much. He just watched her, the way she lifted her fork, the way her voice softened when she spoke about her late mother teaching her to cook. "You make food sound like prayer," he murmured, almost to himself. But that fragile warmth didn't last. Later that week, Amira followed him outside the building and saw him meeting with the same man from before, exchanging a thick envelope under the streetlight. When she confronted him, his mask slipped. "You think you can walk into my world and question me? You have no idea what I protect." The next morning, she found her access card deactivated. Still, she couldn't leave. Something, maybe foolishness, maybe love, pulled her back. Rain fell over Seoul, heavy and unrelenting. Amira stood by the restaurant's delivery entrance, her apron soaked, the world spinning with confusion. Then headlights cut through the downpour. Daehyun stepped out, coat drenched, face unreadable. Neither spoke. He reached for her hand, the same hand that had cooked for him, defied him, disobeyed him. Their fingers met, and then his lips found hers, desperate, furious, needing forgiveness he didn't deserve. When they pulled apart, the rain didn't stop. Neither did the trembling between them. "You should have stayed away," he whispered. But she didn't move. That night, they didn't talk. They just stood there, two storms colliding, both too proud to surrender. In the days that followed, something changed. Daehyun began joining her in the kitchen again. They cooked together, not as boss and employee, but as something undefined. He laughed once. She didn't even know he could. And yet, there were cracks. Strange calls in the middle of the night. New bruises along his knuckles. One morning, she found blood on the marble floor near his office. When she asked, he only said, "Business." That evening, she made his favorite dish, spicy jollof with a Korean twist, and left it outside his door. He never touched it. A week later, Amira woke to pounding at her door. Two men in black suits entered without permission. They searched her apartment, overturning drawers, scattering her spice jars on the floor. When she demanded to know why, they handed her a photo, a blurred image of her talking to a foreign reporter days earlier. By noon, she was fired. She stormed into the restaurant one last time, finding Daehyun standing in the empty dining room. He looked exhausted, older somehow, but his voice was cold. "You've been investigating me since the day you arrived. You think I don't know?" She denied it, but he wouldn't listen. As she turned to leave, he said, quietly, "If you stay, I'll destroy you too." She walked out, holding back tears, knowing he wasn't lying, and that she loved him anyway. A week later, Amira was packing to return home when her phone buzzed. A strange number. She almost didn't answer, until she heard his voice. "Don't get on the plane." Then the line went dead. Outside her window, a black car idled in the street. Its engine hummed softly. And far across the city, in a room filled with smoke and broken glass, Daehyun stood surrounded by men who no longer obeyed him. His empire was burning from the inside, and someone had made sure she was caught in the middle. Rain hammered against the glass walls of the restaurant as Amira stepped inside after weeks of disappearance. Her white chef's jacket was gone, now she wore a black trench coat and a tired expression. The staff froze when they saw her, like seeing a ghost. "Miss Amira," whispered one of the sous chefs. She didn't respond. Her gaze went straight to the office upstairs where Daehyun once sat, the man who'd fired her, humiliated her, and left her to be hunted by people she didn't even know existed. Now, he was the talk of Seoul's underworld, the heir who had burned his own empire to the ground for a woman. When she pushed open his office door, the smell of whiskey and smoke hit her. Daehyun stood there, unshaven, eyes bloodshot. His once perfect hair was tousled, and there were bruises along his jawline. You shouldn't have come back, he said quietly without looking at her. You called me, she replied. 3 missed calls, Dae-hyun. Unless your ghost uses your phone now. He turned slowly, his stare a storm. They're watching you again. Who? She asked. The same people who set you up. The same people who want to end me. Their eyes met, and in that charged silence, the air felt thick with everything left unsaid, guilt, love, and the taste of a flame that refused to die. Amira followed Dae-hyun through dim corridors beneath the restaurant, a secret basement where his family's hidden dealings were stored. Crates of contraband wines, documents, and surveillance screens lined the walls. He stopped at one screen. Her face appeared on it, grainy footage of her handing an envelope to a man outside a hotel. Her breath caught. That's not what it looks like. Dae-hyun's expression was unreadable. It never is it? Her voice shook. You think I betrayed you? I don't know what to think anymore, he said, turning away. Every time I let someone in, I lose something, my peace, my control, my soul. She stepped closer. Then lose it to someone who actually gives a damn. Their faces were inches apart now. His eyes softened for the first time in months. His hand lifted, fingers brushing her braid like a memory he couldn't kill. But before the silence could turn into something more, a sharp crack echoed through the basement, a gunshot, splintering the glass beside them. Down! Dae-hyun roared, pulling her to the ground as bullets tore through the room. Smoke filled the air. Dae-hyun fired back, his movements sharp, precise, like a predator. Amira coughed, clutching his arm as he pulled her toward a hidden tunnel. They emerged into the alley behind the restaurant. Rain fell again, always the rain, washing the blood from his sleeve. Who were they? She gasped. People who don't forgive betrayal, he said. Or people you crossed, she snapped. He turned, fury flashing. You think this is a game? You think this is your little investigative story, Amira? Her voice trembled but stayed strong. You think hiding behind danger makes you powerful, Dae-hyun? It just makes you lonely. Something broke inside him at her words. He grabbed her by the wrist, pulled her close, too close. I warned you, he said lowly, you can't save me. She looked into his eyes, full of pain and love. Then let me drown with you. Hours later, they found themselves back in the restaurant's kitchen, shattered, tired, soaked to the bone. The world outside felt like it was collapsing, but in that quiet kitchen, time stood still. Amira cooked. Her hands moved on instinct, rice sizzling, chili, garlic, smoke rising like ghosts. Dae-hyun sat on the counter, watching. She placed a plate in front of him. Your favorite, she said softly. He smiled faintly. You still remember? I remember everything, she whispered. They ate in silence. Every bite felt like goodbye. Then, suddenly, Dae-hyun's phone rang. He froze, saw the caller ID, and his face went pale. They have Harin, he muttered. Your daughter? He nodded, trembling for the first time. They'll kill her if I don't give them what they want. Without hesitation, Amira said, then we'll go get her. The docks were drenched in moonlight. Black cars lined the pier. Dae-hyun and Amira arrived, one last mission. She wore black. He wore his blood-stained suit. The child stood at the end of the pier, held by 2 masked men. Dae-hyun stepped forward, holding a briefcase. Let her go. A gun clicked behind Amira. She spun, knocking the man's arm, fighting with pure adrenaline. Chaos exploded, shouts, gunfire, the child screaming. Dae-hyun took a bullet to the shoulder but didn't stop. He grabbed Harin, shoving her toward Amira. Take her and go, he shouted. I'm not leaving you, she cried. He smiled weakly through blood. You already saved me once. That's enough. Then another shot rang. His body jerked. He fell. Sirens wailed in the distance. Amira knelt beside him, her braids falling over his face, her tears mixing with the rain. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please." He tried to speak but coughed blood instead. His trembling hand brushed her cheek. "Live," he murmured. "For me." Then his eyes stilled. The ocean wind howled as Harin ran into Amira's arms. She looked at the little girl, the only piece of him left. "Let's go home," she said, her voice breaking. Weeks later. Seoul was quieter. Amira opened a small restaurant, Flame and Silk. The dishes were Korean with an African twist. In the corner hung a framed photo, Daehyun, smiling faintly beside a pan of jollof rice. Every night, she lit a single candle by the window, a light for the man who taught her that love can burn as fiercely as revenge. Outside, thunder rumbled, and she swore she could still hear his voice whisper. "In another life, I'd find you sooner." The candle flickered. The flame swayed.